Well, good evening and welcome once again to the Ref's Opinion. This is a show where it goes out every Monday night at 8 p.m. refereeing decisions in the game. Each week we break down incidents from matches, from controversial calls to ones that flew under the radar. Did the referees get it right? Did they get it wrong? And so on. If you'd like to take part, you're more than welcome. Please do so right at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. There's a little place there where you can leave your comments or you can ask a question. And I will be asking you a question as the viewer as we go through the evening. But I'm delighted to be joined once again by my regular guest, former Premier League referee, former FIFA referee, former head of the PGMOL. Those are the guys who look after the referees in the Premier League and the Championship. The man responsible for introducing goal line technology and the now famous or infamous AMPI or communication sets, which the referees are all using now. In fact, they're using them in many sports other than association football. I see they're using them here in Ireland also in Gaelic football. So it's you've started something there, Mr. Hackett. Great to have you again, Keith. Thanks very much for joining.
Fine. I'd like to take the full credit, but in effect, what happened was I went to a game of rugby and listened in. They were using the communication kits, the IRB, and I immediately went back to the Premier League and said, I want those. And of course, watching this weekend, I've been extremely disappointed because, in recent weeks, we've had, I think, 3 that we've seen where the game has been delayed because of the communication kits. Now, I want to make it clear that when we first introduced them, we laid down the criteria of use, how they were operated, and a duty of care by the referee to look after his equipment. So the first thing he must do at the end of the game is to ensure that they're dried off completely. And ideally, to take the batteries out and apply new batteries before the start of the new game. If they don't dry them off, because obviously they've been used in sweaty conditions, different temperatures, maybe even rain, then you'll start to develop faults. And I suspect here there's 2 things. One, they should examine when the kit needs to be replaced. And secondly, to ensure that it's maintained. And that maintenance is really important. And that's even, the sort of problems we had initially that we learned from was those things about drying off and taking the batteries out and looking after the kit themselves. In the first opening games, we had the problem at Chelsea where I was there when during the course of the game, the referee looked slightly distracted. I went down at half time and said, what's the problem? Having sort of pulled it from his ear. And he was getting a call for a cab from Kensington High Street to Oxford Circus on the system. So in that situation, we encrypted it really very securely. Obviously, we didn't want fans going with a piece of radio tech to interfere. And we started with a push button and we changed that because we wanted it live. And so we had to talk about the linesman and the 4th official, the assistant, taking care when to come in. And I just think it's sad that a piece of equipment that is proven to be very, very reliable, but I wonder if it's coming to the end of its shelf life. I regularly took maybe 4 or 5 systems completely, sent them back to our suppliers and had them fully maintained. And that is, soldering to make certain the wires are connected correctly to the battery unit, all those sort of things. So I was disappointed this weekend that it took so long and really wanted to grab the officials to say, look, what's going off here? I hope Webb, with 3 going down in recent weeks, there's a problem. He needs to deal with it.
I just wonder if he's on top of these things, Keith. And you and I have spoken to this in the past, and I particularly just feel that he's not doing the job that he was hired to do, which is to look after the match officials. He seems to spend a lot of his time in the media, and I'm talking about his show with Michael Owen. Not that that's bad or good one way or the other, and I don't have an opinion, but I do think he should be spending more time dealing with the referees and the assistant referees and the problems that arise from time to time with these match officials, like the VAR equipment. That surely falls under his remit.
Well, of course. And I mean, when we consider that there's probably £3 or £4 million being spent on the Stockley Park setup, which I understand is quite impressive. But, you know, I sometimes go to airports and watch aeroplanes, and they set the example, how they are maintained, how they fly. And, you know, you look at Formula One and probably how they have to break down the car, reset it for the next race, etc., etc. I just think that in our refereeing, we have game-to-game inconsistency by the same official. We have in-game inconsistency by certain match officials, and across the group, inconsistency. And, you know, I watched a game yesterday where a goal was given offside, and I'm looking at the VAR, and it's saying to me, this is, I think, in a Manchester City game, the goal is onside. And they come out later on, the Premier League or the PGMOL spokesman saying if the VAR has got it wrong, the goal should have allowed. I mean, I sometimes I'm taking very great care now, because I know with AI generated posts, you know, you worry about the credibility of what's been written on social media. But that was a post on social media. It was a post that was verified by Football Insider, who I write for, and I gave the answer that this is a nonsense. You know, when we look at VAR operates in 2 modes, doesn't it? First of all, the offside. What the IFAB have got to do, and FIFA and everyone else, is get the system to operate like goal line technology. All the referee wants is, when the goal goes in the back of the net, a call of offside. He doesn't need to be involved in a conversation as to how they come to that decision. And the only way we're going to get that is to actually invest heavily in AI, in the latest camera technology, in the latest software technology that takes into account active, interfering with an opponent, gaining an advantage, the law as a whole. Consider where there's gaps to change the law to accommodate a system that is saying to the match officials, referee, like the watch that says goal, it says offside. Because at the moment, that side of VAR, toenails and everything else, is a mess. Because I don't trust, you know, I know technology, I know it deeply, I've been involved with it, I've seen experts in that field, and I feel that the technology that's been operated at this moment in time is flawed and making life more difficult for match officials than that man standing with a flag, who in the past was doing a good job, and I think getting more decisions right than the technology in terms of offside.
I just want to throw something in here, Keith, and maybe you're getting it on your side. I am getting a lot of interference.
Yes.
I'm presuming it's because of the very, very good weather that we're getting, very unusually good weather. And I was looking at the BBC news when they were doing the weather forecast, and the guy there, the weatherman, says, believe it or not, this is still spring. We haven't even hit summer yet, so whatever that's going to be like.
No.
It does seem to be impacting our show, but we'll carry on. How do you think, Keith, they'll do Dunvar? How do you think they'll will they come up with a better system for the World Cup, or is this the general system that's used everywhere?
I think the World Cup operates two things. First of all, it's got the Adidas chip in the ball, which in my opinion gives a greater level of accuracy. So that's the first thing. I think that they're able to select, as they have done, VAR operators. So there's people like Jared Gillett, who I think had a really good game in the playoff final, which wasn't that great. Hull City. Middlesbrough wasn't a great game, but he still delivered a very good performance. He will be next week going to the World Cup as a VAR. And let me tell you, in that period from perhaps the 31st, when the camp lights up in Miami, he will be trained, examined, thoroughly prepared, along with his colleagues, to do the job. And Collina and Busacca, the two Italians that run referees at the World Cup, they will lay down very clear, very unequivocal what is expected of the match officials. Let me tell you, if they don't come up to scratch, they're on the plane home. And I think this is getting back to that original, where are we in the English game? Well, the PGMOL posted recently that over 50 errors have been made in 380 games. That is too many. And that is their figure. If I was preparing, as we do every week, examining decisions over a 38-week period, 380 games, we know that that figure is much, much higher. So I think that in refereeing, when we refereed, you and I, when we analysed our performance, we looked more carefully about the errors that we considered we may have made. Someone might be telling us we made them. And the whole sort of procedure then is to examine what might have been an iffy decision, learn from it, and then don't repeat it. But we've got match officials who are repeating the same error. And, the real problem as I see it is this. I think the quality of the decision-making generally across a lot of referees is poor. I think they're struggling to recognise the simple foul, the careless challenge, the reckless challenge, and the excessive force. And I think that is where Howard Webb, the boss, if you like Collina, like Busacca, lay down a very clear line of, here are video examples, these go in this box. I want everybody to understand in this room, that is a reckless challenge, yellow card. That is an excessive force that endangers, red card, serious foul play. I want you to recognize violent conduct. He is that specific. This is a guy, Collina, who I've been in his company. He is an absolute detail man. He lives, eats and breathes refereeing. And of course, the selection of those referees are under his watch, and he wants them to do well. So he will ensure that any iffy, unfit, people who fail the fitness test, whatever, off they go. There's no remedial action by that referee or by FIFA, bye-bye. And I think referees recognise that, because that's what you have to do when you're the boss.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. Just a reminder, you're watching The Ref's Opinion. This is the show where we analyse refereeing and refereeing decisions from week to week. And if you'd like to partake, please do so by filling in your little question or your comment on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. I see Tommy Breen is off the ball early. He said it's the ref's headsets. And then he made another comment. I'll just put it up for you, Keith. It's the ref's headsets. And then he says, he's saying the interference. I think that's a bit tongue-in-cheek there, is it, Tommy? But anyway, thanks for your comment. I think there's a little tongue-in-cheek there. As the ref says, okay, okay.
I mean, make no mistake, these are expensive pieces of equipment. Yeah. And like all expensive pieces of equipment that are encrypted, so the match officials only, and now, of course, the VAR can listen in. And in my era, we recorded that transcript, as, of course, I think happens now. So the technology is pretty simple. It's very efficient. But like everything, if you don't maintain it, then you have the problems.
Yeah. And what do you think is the real problem, though, Keith? I mean, sure, okay, rain can get in, or the sweat of the body can seep through, or whatever. That shouldn't happen, surely, to goodness.
I think it's a fairly simple one, and that is battery or battery connection. If the batteries are
waterproof, shouldn't they? They should be waterproof.
Well, I mean, that's why in my era I just said I'm not taking any risk. Batteries cost pennies.
Yeah.
Change them all. I didn't want any, and of course, 1 hour before kickoff, or maybe a little bit longer, hour and 15, hour and 20, the referee will go out onto the field of play with his colleagues and test the equipment works.
As he should, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, this is down to the individual referee making certain that his equipment is funded properly, i.e., it's the latest technology. And, which in terms of the overall, the PGMOL spend 40 million plus a year. So when we look at that, the piece of equipment, which are expensive in the hundreds, it's a small amount of money. So I think it's down to maintenance.
Okay, let's move on a little bit. Just as we're doing a sort of revision, if you like, or revising or looking back on last year, who have been the referees that impressed you most?
Well, I always look at the future. We know that when Michael Oliver has got a big game, he's going to deliver a good performance, generally. I think on the odd occasion, I think his mind's been wandering, because he probably thinks this is not top of the league. It might be mid-table. And every game is a cup final. And I think sometimes that is probably occasionally his downfall. But I think he's a pretty good referee. I think Taylor has had a pretty good season. I think Jared Gillett is one that is a steady guy. I would have liked to have seen him having more games. I think that would have helped. I think of the new guys, it is evident that Farah Halam has come in and impressed everybody. And when I watch him, I think in the games he's had today at the Premier League, he's probably made one error. But I think that against that, he looks calm, confident, reads the game well, moves like a gazelle when he has to. And he's a very sound decision maker. And his detection of where a player acts to simulate, to deceive, he doesn't buy it. I think he's been pretty consistent I think you look at Thomas Kirk. He's probably newer into the list. He's had a few games at Football League level, Championship level. He's a very, very solid referee, and therefore he's the future. And he's had the odd Premier League game and done really well.
Premier League games are probably, for want of a better word, easier than some of the Championship games.
Yeah, there's no question that often is the case. It's the outward
very
pressure.
Rough and tumble in the Championship.
Yeah, I think it's dealing with pressure. When you're a new kid on the block, you've just got to bed yourself in.
Yeah,
and I think he's done that. I would like, I have a sort of feeling that next year, we operate SG1 and SG2. SG1 does Premier League refereeing. SG2 does the Championship. Well, I think that there are one or two referees that have not impressed me on the Premier League. I think, like players, you can be a very good player in the Championship, but once you get into the Premier League, it catches you out. It's the speed at which the game is played. It's how you cope with pressure. You're dealing with a bigger event, and I think there are one or two referees that have not, for me, I would have had that conversation to say, we've put everything into trying to make you a better referee at this level. I'm putting you back down in order to gain more experience and probably then to prove to us that you can come back. But I think Webb will merge them. And in merging SG1 and SG2, he hasn't got that problem, has he? He hasn't got that issue.
Yeah, SG1 and SG2, that's the Premier League and the Championship, yeah.
Yes, and I think he'll merge those referees. And I think that will allow him greater flexibility. Yeah. I think SG2 and SG1 will probably come together. I've only a feeling on that, but I don't think Howard likes to do the big job of saying across a table, you've not proven that you're good enough at this level. And I'm sorry. We've attempted to do everything in terms of operational advice. It's not been forthcoming. You're making too many errors. I'm going to give you a chance. I want you to drop down into the Football League where hopefully you gain confidence and re-energize your performances to meet the standard that my expectation is. You can't fudge these issues.
Yeah, sometimes, when you're the boss, they say that the higher up the tree you go, the more wind it blows, and that's one expression. But it really, the other one is lonely is the head that wears the crown, or worse, that effect. When you're up there, you just cannot be friends with people under you. You can do the best you can, but you can't be seen to be too soft either. And sometimes people don't realize that you're being tough because you've seen a mistake and you want the guy to stand up and deal with that mistake. But Keith, the big question that people ask all the time is consistency. So how do you get up and coming referees or newer referees up to the standard or the level of Taylor and Oliver?
Well, I think there are many aspects when you look at those two referees. First of all, you've got to develop their maturity and confidence. So the new boy on the block has to be told very clearly he is now part of the squad. He's not off, out of the squad. He's inside it. Mm-hmm. He's now one of them. My expectation is you've proven to me in your games at the Championship that you're capable of dealing with games at the very highest level. So in that situation, it's one of building their confidence, offering them advice, having 2 or 3 good coaches working around them, not confusing, but with the group as a whole, showing very clearly how you expect the laws of the game to be interpreted, how you as a group are going to deal with the grappling in the penalty area, how you are going to define. I mean, what I did was I did a DVD. I did a DVD that at the time showed careless challenges, reckless challenges, excessive force. I put it to music. You know, I had Coldplay on the reckless challenges singing Yellow. And then on the red, I think it might have been Black Eyed Peas with Old Red Eyes is Back or whatever it's called. But I was visually, mentally stimulating them by association, not to the point of boredom, but showing them enough clips, one after the other, so they clearly understood where the box was in terms of what your expectation was for that challenge. And then I would go to the managers pre-season and say, these are careless, these are yellow, these are red. I actually produced the DVD and handed it over to the managers so they could play them to their coaching staff, play them to the academies, so that everybody understood what was a foul challenge, free kick, penalty kick, a reckless, free kick, yellow card, excessive force endangering a serious foul play challenge, red card. So there were those things. How to manage conflict. You know, again, putting them under stressful conditions, but doing that with an expert sports psychologist. You know, and that sports psychologist, part of my team, was the point at which the referees, could talk to him if they had any concerns. So they didn't have to express their concerns directly to me, but if they were concerned or I needed to encourage them, I would go to games, I would go in maybe at half-time and full-time, encouraging and building their confidence. There's no better way to build the confidence of a Premier League referee is to operate week in, week out, week in, week out. What I've seen this weekend is it opens up the worry that I've had in a lack of care of selecting the referee to the match. If you've got a referee like Oliver that's delivering, I've got 10 games in the Premier League to a point. If Oliver is refereeing well, is in form, I've got 9. He's on the roster. Taylor on the roster. Gilly
on
the roster. Week in, week out. And those that are saying, well, why aren't you giving me games? I'd be saying, prove to me that you're in form. And of course, I would then use the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, the Championship, EF 1 and 2 to give them games and then go and watch them and have them filmed. You know, so it's about management. And then, of course, the other thing was the selection of the assistants with the referee. You know, and that also is important, that they can build a trust and a team spirit and a team ethic where, you know, they come in at half time and the assistants and the referees got trust in each other and they can rectify anything that's not quite right in the first half in the second. They might say, look, Fred, you're the number 4. It looks as though he's running the game here. You're missing 1 or 2. It's building up. Just keep an eye on him. Have a word. And I think these are the things that are missing. And I think that VAR this season has been a disaster. I think it's impacted on the game in a negative way that is impacted on fans' enjoyment. I think it's also impacted on the, if you like, credibility of some of our referees.
Yeah.
Because as referees in our era, we made mistakes, and by Tuesday, they were chip paper gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it's build on build, where people go back and they quote, April, whatever, so and so, this particular match. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of people out there examining the match performance of referees. So here's my advice to young up and coming referees. Don't read the media. Don't do social media. Maybe listen to shows like ours, because you may just get a snippet of advice that might help you in your career. But don't get involved in social media in other ways of talking about and highlighting what you are doing as a referee, because it'll come back and bite you.
Sound advice, and couldn't come from a better man. Keith, just one final comment, and we won't have time to discuss it. But Tommy's come back and he says, this deceiving of the ref should come with a serious offence. Off the pitch for 5 minutes. A Spurs player went down yesterday like he was hit with a bat. The ref ignored it. The player jumped up and raced back to defend. Overall, the Premier League was poor this season, in my opinion. Well, I don't think we'll disagree with that, Tommy, and thank you very much for your comment. Just to remind us, we're going to take a break next week because the Premier League has now ended for this 25-26 season. So we'll take a break next week, but we will be back the following week, which is the 8th of June, which is a Monday, because the World Cup starts a few days later on the 11th of June. So Keith and I will be back, not next week, but the week after, and we'll be doing a build-up to the World Cup, and we'll be looking at some of the referees from various countries from around the world who are actually there at the event. Until then, Keith Hackett, thank you very, very much for doing a great season. I really, really do appreciate it.
Pleasure.
And thank you out there for watching and spreading the gospel. Next week, we have a week off, but we will be back the following week. Until then, thank you for watching, and good night.
Good night.